You're watching news from Kazakhstan. Today is Wednesday, March 28th. I'm Askar Sherlief, and these are the top stories. The trial over mass disorders in Zhanaozen and Shetpe began with postponement due to the absence of Nursultan Makashev. At the same time, not everyone was able to enter the courtroom on Tuesday. Employees of Beast companies servicing Kumkol oil field are protesting the suspension of the enterprise's operation with a rally. The company failed to win a tender for the Chinese investor Kazakhstan. The staff of the penal colony in Balkhash is on trial for allowing a mass escape attempt last summer. Back then, 16 prisoners managed to detonate a makeshift bomb. The trial over Zhanaozen and Shetpe events last December started yesterday in Aktau. The initial hearing was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the Arman Youth Center. However, the process was delayed while numerous people who wanted to attend the trial never made it inside due to a crowded entrance. Due to non-appearance of Nursultan, one of the parties to a trial, the judge Aralbay Nagishbayev, postponed the process until after lunch. The families of the 37 accused have covered 150 kilometers to commute to the regional center. Those who have made it into the court couldn't hold their tears during the trial. Others couldn't get through to the youth center. Many were outraged by the fact that the trial is not held in Zhanaozen, where the mass riots took place, and have doubts about the case receiving an impartial judgment. Why aren't they let in? What about all the talks of open and transparent trial? There's no justice in Mangistau. The crowd is outraged. If everything was fair, would the crowd act like that? It's been 3 months already. This is because there is no justice. They can't start the trial because one guy is missing. Some say he's just outside and simply can't enter the building. Why can't they bring him in? That is the cause of all the noise here. I don't have anyone I know on trial here. I have to come because my heart is crying for Kazakh people. I want a fair trial, no more than that. I don't believe the trial will be fair. That is why I'm here to see everything with my own eyes. Reporters were allowed inside the courtroom during the second part of yesterday's hearings only for a few minutes. Despite the fact that voice recording and use of mobile devices during the trial is permitted by the law, reporters had to submit all of their mobile phones at the entrance. Court officers later explained that media representatives can use a specially set-up press center, although journalists encountered some problems even there.
Reporters were the first to gather at 8 in the morning next to the Arman's Youth Club, as until the very last moment they were not sure if accreditation would be required to attend the trial. The authorities kept the promise and the media was allowed inside after the ID check and kit inspection. The problem started occurring at around 10 when families of the defendants began to arrive. The trial organizers did not expect such a crowd of those willing to attend the hearing and simply closed the passage, leaving around 200 people outside. But even those who managed to get into the building eventually were not allowed to enter the main hall. It was suggested that the defendants' families watch the trial on a TV screen instead. The crowd was outraged and stormed the doors of the courtroom, as many of the people who came here had not seen their arrested relatives for more than 2 months. Eventually, people managed to break into the courtroom. The local administration, which did not expect the turn-up, called an urgent meeting and came up with a decision. The 40 minutes late judge adjourned the hearings to 3 o'clock, officially due to the absence of one of the witnesses, Nursultan Makashev, who was served a summons with the Repatriate Support Center address, where the trial was initially supposed to take place. After that, the lead was taken by the public committee representative Bulat Abilov. He appealed for stopping the conflict and said he was heading to the regional head to ask for a premise that could accommodate everyone. The activists were able to get an appointment with the Mangistau region head Baurjan Muhamedjanov quite quickly, but what they heard was rather discouraging. There are 2 premises, but the rent is very expensive. That's why we are bringing TVs and inviting everyone to another room. Sadder but wise after the bitter morning experience, the defendants' families and journalists gathered by the courthouse an hour and a half before the restart of the trial. However, this time, people were checked against the list before being allowed to enter the building. Only 1 person per each defendant was able to get inside. The hassle at the entrance hindered the way even for lawyers and witnesses. Finally, the trial started. The defendants were brought into the courtroom and introduced to the public. The judge, however, caveated that despite the process was open, the large number of people attending the trial prevented the court from working efficiently, and the media had only 10 minutes for taking photos. The rest of the trial would be broadcasted on TV monitors. Unfortunately, the quality of picture and sound were far from perfect. After preliminary proceedings and familiarizing the parties with the case materials, the judge decided to continue the trial the next day. During the confusion at the exit, the most persistent relatives of the accused oilers were able to burst their way to the courtroom doors and see their family members. However, the happy moments did not last long. The defendants were taken away, and their loved ones could do nothing but wait for the next trial.
The trial over the December 16 disorders in Zhanaozen is monitored by over 40 representatives of international organizations. 37 people, all oil field workers, are on trial with various charges, most for taking part in mass disorders. Nevertheless, the prosecutor's office was able to compile a uniform indictment.
Same indictment for all the defendants. There are 37 of them in the Zhanaozen case. They are all indicted on several charges. More than 3 pages are describing the organization and participation in mass riots, as well as the use of force against public authorities. 7 people are considered conspirators, including Rosa Toletaeva. Her social network updates and SMS messages are now used as evidence against her. On December 15, 2011, Rosa Toletaeva, who was protesting against the installation of yurts at the square, used an SMS service for sending following tweets to other protesters. Wooden shacks are installed. A yurt is placed at the square. Mayor threatened the strikers. Thus, the investigation believes that these tweets were the call for mass rioting. Page 2. Besides calling for mass rioting on December 15, 2011, Rosa Toletaeva used an SMS service to tweet the following: "Oh Allah, give strength to my people." In other words, she wanted their conspired crimes to go down as planned. Indictment, page 26. Prosecution charges are based on evidence presented by the police, district administration staff and several oil workers. All of them testify against the strike activists, claiming that the defendants conspired to organize the mass unrest at the Zhanaozen square beforehand. Saktaganov, Toletaeva and Kaliyev were to prevent oil workers from leaving, gather more people on the square and encourage their participation in mass riots. Dusmagambetov and Jusupayev were to prepare explosives and firearms and then deliver them to the square. Jarsalganov and Dusmagambetov were to disrupt the planned festivities and initiate the unrest. Indictment, page 5. It's doubtful that this was intentionally planned. The evidence should be closely examined. For instance, the evidence related to the firearms. It was indicated that someone had prepared firearms beforehand for the riot organization. Again, we have to look into this evidence and then listen to the person who is charged based on this evidence. It's too soon to make any conclusions now. Police officers who opened fire at people are not charged by the prosecution office just yet. Andrei Grishin, a human rights activist, believes this is not objective. This is objective in terms of distorted logic of our government. It fits the setup that the opposition is always guilty, which makes all strikers guilty as well, since they tended to support the opposition and express their own demands, including political ones. In December last year, criminal investigations were launched against several law enforcement officers, although without much publicity. The Bureau for Human Rights hopes that the army of observers that arrived to Aktau for the trial will make the court adhere to legal procedures.
Valentin Gefter, the director of the Human Rights Institute in Russia, spoke about the trial in Aktau. Gefter believes some steps have been made to ensure the objectivity of the process. However, the trial preparation and investigation itself should have been more thorough and transparent. More importantly, there should have been another trial first, not featuring current defendants.
The investigation and announcement of results must be completed overall, and only then it can be taken to court. It's inappropriate to just pull off one link, be it central or middle one, that concerns only those people involved, and say that the rest will be done with later on. First of all, the government must review the actions of its subordinates, and only then talk about people that they are accusing.
Human Rights Watch is calling for a fair trial over Zhanaozen events. Mira Riedman, an expert on Central Asia, believes all reports of possible brutality against people arrested in Zhanaozen must be investigated as well. All 37 defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Kazakh authorities must show that this will be a fair trial in accordance with international standards. At the same time, the trial must be transparent and open for defendants' families, mass media, as well as local and international observers. A rally of several hundred employees of BIS company servicing Kumkol oil field was held yesterday in Kızıldağ. The staff was left without jobs following the company's failure to win a tender for the contractor Kazakhstan. 700 employees are now jobless since February. BIS managing director Murhan Nurmuhambetov faced a frustrated crowd and admitted that the company can no longer afford to pay people since it is not operational. Apparently, the enterprise lost over $400,000 in just 1 month of being idle, while numerous petitions have been sent by the management to different state bodies, including the prosecutor's office and local administration.
More than 500 workers of the Kızıldağ BIS Transport Servicing Company had decided to hold the rally on the territory of their own enterprise after failing to receive an official permission to hold it in the town. Protesters holding posters with economic and political demands, as well as occasional portraits of President Nazarbayev, started the rally early, hoping to be heard. Workers demand to punish those responsible for leaving them unprotected from unemployment and investigate the causes for bankruptcy of a prospering company. We live in Kazakhstan, however, we feel like slaves of Chinese. For how long is this going to continue? We call for just solution of our problems. We demand justice. I work as a driver for this company for already 10 years and I know almost every employee here. I cannot understand why living in our country we are left unemployed. We are all witnessing how one of the most successful companies is being ruined. Who do you think should be blamed? Of course, the investors. It's not that we don't need them, we certainly do as we are yet a young state, but did we want such irresponsible and greedy investors? The BIS company had been operating for about 10 years, transporting hazardous cargo such as raw oil and oiled field water. Now the company is idle as the management failed to obtain the procurement contract from its major client, Kazakhstan, which is fully controlled by Chinese investors. In the current situation, the workers, majority of whom are residents of the neighboring southern Kazakhstan regions, do not want to return home without proper compensations. When will our country take care of us widows who are forced to raise their kids on their own? We demand not to leave us jobless, give us our jobs back. I would agree with most of what you say and I took note of everything. You have appealed before and I remember that too. In this relation I can say that all will be considered within the legal procedures. I assure you no one will be left without a job. Local administrations are working on this at the moment. I even heard of some offers coming your way from other companies. But please, listen to me. I repeat once again, all your appeals will be considered. I took note of them and will pass it on further. The director of the BIS company, Murhan Nurmuhambetov, had also spoken in front of the protesters. He admitted that the enterprise is going through serious difficulties and cannot afford to keep the positions any longer. According to Nurmuhambetov, the company had already lost about $400,000 within a month of being idle. BIS managers' appeals were sent out to many corresponding state bodies, including the prosecutor's office and local administrations. However, no response was received. I suggest to wait and see, and in any case I am sure there will be some solution and no one will be left without a job. Trying to calm the angry crowd down, the director of the servicing company called people not to panic and asked them to disperse. He even took care of the special transport to take protesters home. However, no one wanted to leave and everyone discussed what to do next. The most frustrated men decided to storm the local administration and prosecutor's office buildings, as well as the Kazakhstan headquarters. Only due to the effective cooperation of security officers and leaders of the protesters, the angry crowd was calmed down successfully after they were asked to be a bit more patient and people were put in buses and sent home.
It was revealed after the rally that the local administration granted permission to hold a protest action after all, although it was received too late. That is why employees had no choice but to hold their action on the company's territory.
This is official permission received by the company management. The director of the BIS company, Meirkhan Nurmahambetov, told Stan KZ reporters that the company applied for a permission in accordance with regulations 10 days in advance, but having received no answer, were forced to hold the rally on their own territory. The Kazakh City Council's letter featured the list of locations where it's permitted to hold rallies, which are, as a rule, located far from central parts of the town, mostly in outskirts or nearby villages. One of such designated spots is located near the poultry farm in Kızıljarma village. We have applied beforehand, but there was no timely response, so we held it on our own territory to express our position. Now we have to wait for the authorities' reaction.
The situation with disabled miners in Karaganda region is not improving. Ex-Kazakhmys employees demand to recognize the current collective agreement unconstitutional. ArcelorMittal Temirtau miners fight for their compensations through courts, while disabled workers from terminated mines are bombarding Astana with complaints about the unfair allocation of resource benefits.
Alexander Majore, a skilled combined harvest operator, does not go outside anymore. Both wrestling and weightlifting are the things of his past, as 20 years of work in a mine have damaged his lungs. The entire family income has to be sent on medication now. Coal dust destroyed my lungs, which are now 70% non-functional. I could get a transplant, but each one costs $500,000. I won't be able to collect so much money, even in 500 years. On top of everything, there is an unfair treatment in recalculation of indemnification payable to the disabled people who were laid off from the closed mines. Former miners, now disabled, often get together to discuss their grievances. Even though their blood pressure rises and the mood drops after such talks, eventually they led to a collective petition. Perhaps the president never got our letter. It's more likely it was bounced off by the front office. In short, they've added me only 13,000 in benefits. The recalculation was carried out on the basis of average wage rates in the coal mining industry obtained from the statistics department. However, for some reason, the document misses a few job specifications. That's why miners appealed to ArcelorMittal Temirtau. Following that, the amount of indemnification payable to some disabled workers increased 5- to 6-fold, and for the others, nothing has actually changed at all. There are over 500 disabled ex-miners from the closed mines in Karaganda region, and the problem requires immediate solution. The algorithm for such method of indemnification recalculation is just plain outrageous, say the ex-miners. We have submitted a memo to the General Prosecutor's Office on the state-level development of a set of regulations on the procedure of payment to the employees of Karaganda Liquid Shacht who are to be paid indemnification by that enterprise. But it will take time for the regulations to reach the parliament. A regulatory enactment has to pass through a few agencies before it reaches its final destination. The MPs, however, are also busy working on the issue. A special request to resolve the problems of the disabled from Karaganda has already been sent to the cabinet head.
Yesterday, Almaty Administrative Court continued to review the case of those who participated in March 24 rally dedicated to 100 days since Zhanaozen tragedy. The first verdict was handed to Ramazan Yesergepov, the head of Journalists in Trouble Fund, for announcing the rally resolution. Yesergepov is now to pay over $200, but he disagrees with the judge's decision.
In any case, I am going to appeal against it in the city court, because what we have here is legal idiocy carried through by all sorts of people, both honest or dishonest, starting from the law enforcement agencies and to the courts, just to show the legal mayhem they are all part of. In a few hours, Judge Zhana Nurgalieva announced a verdict for the journalist Kasym Amanjol. He will also have to pay a fine of just over $200. Amirjan Kasanov, the leader of the National Social Democratic Party, who was there to support Amanjol, does not share the judge's opinion. The politician was even removed from the courtroom for a comment during the trial. The hearing conveyor continued for about 10 minutes. According to the judge, Kasım Amanjol should not have participated in the unsanctioned rally. The journalists objected. No one needs a permission to observe a minute's silence and pray for the fallen. The argument, however, failed to impress the judge. I won't appeal the decision, as I believe it would be useless with our courts and our legal system. An appeal would be just a waste of time. We need to think hard to avoid having courts like this in the future after the Nazarbayev's rule. We'll need to avoid the same system happening again.
Several one-man pickets of pre-trial detention centers were held yesterday in Almaty. Ruslan Nuyandin protested against the charges of inciting social hatred filed against politician Vladimir Kozlov, director Bolat Atabayev and Ruh Pentil Youth Club head Janbolat Mamay. Nuyandin told the press he learned about the upcoming trials against oppositions and decided to express his opinion on the matter.
I'm shocked to see the people who helped others and supported our fellow oil workers during Zhanaozen events are now called organized criminals. Similar action took place in Semey. Activists Murat Kamzin and Fatima Kasenova once again posed a rhetorical question to the local National Security Committee department why Vladimir Kozlov's wife is not granted a prison visit. As it turned out later, Igor Panin, an employee of the City Administration Department for Internal Policies, and Bakhtibek Sadikbayev, a City MI department officer, just happened to pass by Action Local together with a cameraman who recorded the entire event. Public authorities ordered to stop the action under the threat of further sanctions. Nevertheless, activists completed their action and now they say they intend to continue fighting for Vladimir Kozlov's rights.
The trial over the armed escape attempt from AK-159-21 prison was opened yesterday in Balkhash. Last summer, the attempt left one officer dead and 3 injured when prisoners detonated a makeshift bomb. 3 former heads of the facility are now charged with criminal negligence.
The notorious criminal case is divided into 20 volumes and has over 100 witnesses, so the judicial proceedings will take long time. Interagency investigation team established the course of events last summer. According to the official version, the colony mosque was the center of prison break preparation process. Imam chosen among the convicted took the charge of preparation and obtained absolute freedom behind bars. A significant role in the group of religious extremists played a person convicted for terrorist attack preparation in Taras. The Salafi was well trained, according to the public prosecutors. The followers of the radical Islamic movement successfully recruited other prisoners, prepared explosive items and firearms. Rifles and guns were smuggled by former prisoner Tulyeushev, who committed suicide in Astana pre-trial center soon after detention. Legal proceedings proved that persons involved used cellular communication to discuss firearm delivery issues as well as types of guns, stashes locations, etc.
Karaganda policemen are accused of severe brutality. 3 people ended up in a hospital after facing several officers during the recent holidays.
I was beaten in the stomach by the police, but all the while I tried grabbing their hands and asking why, and then they were beaten with batons. A couple of times I was hit in the head. When I regained consciousness, I was already handcuffed and was still beaten. Then they put me in the car and continued beating me there. The young men say they were having a celebration in a small cookery while several policemen were seated at the next table. The conflict started when they suspected the young men of stealing a mobile phone. When the claim was rejected, officers decided to use force. This brutality resulted in sutured head, broken fingers and ribs, as well as a ruptured lung. Victims say policemen were beating them with batons and crushed their heads with heavy army boots, while parents show blood-stained clothes of their children. A criminal probe has already been launched into the matter. However, according to the officers, this was not the case at all. 2 internal troop soldiers and 1 policeman arrived at the site where 5 drunk men hit one of the officers, so the reinforcement was called in. 3 of the 5 guys were taken to the Southeast Police Department. Others managed to escape.
Kazkommerce engineering real estate investors are ready to fight for their still unfinished apartments. The decision was made during the meeting with the management of the state construction company Zhetusu Jana Kurylis.
Where is the management? They are not here. Only deputy director is here. Zhunzhalov is absent, so is Batalov. It is like they are playing game with people. Well, we're just warning them that with such assemblies, we intend to take more decisive steps. Deputy director of the company arrived to deal with frustrated interest holders alone and explained that the top management was in Astana to meet with the Prime Minister. The interest holders were supposed to enter their homes 7 years ago. However, the construction of the Elimay
and Champs-Élysées estates hasn't been completed yet, ever since 2 special commissions were set up to inspect the situation, but no resolution on Kazkommerce engineering interest holders issue was made still. At 6 o'clock, satellite town issue will be reviewed, following with the issue linked to the funding of Champs-Élysées project's construction.
This is all we have time for now. Join us tomorrow for more. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.